Today I want to make sausages again because they're so much fun to make. I think sausages are a lot of fun and they're good to eat too. In one of my sausage cookbooks, I saw a recipe for something called Tuscan sausages, and what intrigued me about this was that one of the ingredients is chopped sun-dried tomatoes. And I thought, oh, I got to try that. That sounds like it could be good. Another feature about the sausage is that the book explained that it gets its flavor more from the cuisines of northern Italy, Europe. So it has more of an herbal flavor to it as opposed to southern Italy, which is somewhat influenced by the cuisines of North Africa. Therefore, they have the hot spiciness chili that's common in southern Italy. So that's what I want to do today. I want to make these Tuscan sausages. I lined a small tray with parchment paper, and I'm going to lay out my pork here. This is pork shoulder. It's actually pork butt. It gets its name from, I guess pork shoulder was considered to be like a low-grade cut of meat. And they would pack it in wooden crates called butts and sell it cheap years ago, and then after a while it got the name pork butt from the wooden crates. I can find pork butt that has a lot of fat on it, which is what you need. If you have a very lean kind of pork like this, where there isn't a lot of fat on it, you may need to get some additional pork fat, such as pork fat back, which isn't available locally here, but I can special order it. But the pork that I buy, it has these nice pieces of fat on it. You need about 20% fat for the sausages to be juicy and flavorful without being too dry. So what I have here is a total of about 3.5 pounds of meat. That would be 3 pounds of pork, which is about 1.4 kilograms, and then 1/2 pound, 227 grams of pork fat. And I'm going to put this in the freezer for about 20 minutes because it will be semi-frozen, 20 to 30 minutes. It'll pass through the meat grinder more easily by being semi-frozen. It's because of the fat. It won't rend and get sticky in there. In the meanwhile, about a half an hour ago, I took a couple of hog casings. These are medium hog casings. I bought these on Amazon. Rinsed those well, and then I put them in a bowl of cold water. They've been sitting in there for a while. And then last night before I went to bed, I put my meat grinder attachment for my KitchenAid. I put this in the refrigerator so that it'll be really cold when I work with it. Again, the idea is to keep that fat from rending and getting sticky. It'll pass through the grinder more easily. While I'm waiting for that pork to chill in the freezer, I'm going to assemble my spice mixture. I'm starting off with a 1/4 cup of dry red wine, Chianti or whatever, doesn't matter, dry red wine. And then I've got here 1 tablespoon of dried basil. If you can find fresh basil, I looked for it last night at the store and I couldn't find it. You could use 1/4 cup of minced fresh basil, but this is 1 tablespoon of dried. It'll work fine. And then I have 2 teaspoons of dried oregano. You could substitute that with 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh oregano. And then I have 1 teaspoon of coarsely ground black pepper. This is a pinch or about 1/8 of a teaspoon of allspice. And then what I'm going to put in there is, just to start off, 1 teaspoon of salt. I can add more later. I'm going to actually be testing it for salt. But that'll be enough for right now. And I'll just mix this up. And this will be ready for the meat when I'm ready to grind the meat in there. Here is my pork from the freezer. This pork, by the way, just to give you some background, this was cut into 1-inch cubes that are about 2.5 centimeters. And then on my meat grinder, I'm using the medium-sized grinding plate, which is the 8mm plate. Now to this, because I'm going to grind it all together, I'm adding 1/2 cup, which is 100 grams, 1/2 cup, 100 grams of chopped sun-dried tomatoes. I'm going to spread all that through there. And then This always scares a few people. These are anchovy fillets. Don't be frightened of them. They don't taste a lot like anchovies when they're mixed into something like this. They just add a little more depth of flavor. So I'm going to add 4 of these fillets to my pork here. Some people ask me where I buy some of my kitchen items. If you're wondering about my meat grinder here, this is a Smokehouse Chef brand, all stainless steel meat grinder. I didn't want to buy the KitchenAid plastic one. I bought this on Amazon. You can also check the Smokehouse Chef website. I'll put the URL down there, smokehousechef.com. Compare the prices. I've actually seen it costing less on the Smokehouse Chef website rather than on Amazon. All right, I'm set up here to now start grinding some of this meat. I'm going to put it into my meat grinder. If I remember correctly, I use this on the number 4 setting on my KitchenAid. Get a little cloth here to keep my fingers dry. Let's start grinding this pork. I transferred my ground meat and my spice mixture to a restaurant pan. We have a Smart & Final right up the street. Smart & Final is a California chain, and besides selling grocery store foods, they have some restaurant items there, and that's where I bought this. So I'm wearing a glove because of the spices on my hands. I'm just going to blend this all up. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to cover this and I'm going to refrigerate this now for maybe 2 to 3 hours just to let the dried herbs absorb some moisture, rehydrate, and then flavor the meat. My sausage filling mixture has been sitting in the refrigerator for a while. I took my meat grinder and with the stuffer tube on it out of the refrigerator, and now very carefully I'm putting the casing on the tube. This takes a while to feed this on. You just want to do this carefully so you don't tear the casing. I prepared 2 of these casings. With the amount of meat that I have, I might need a 3rd one. I'll see what I have left over. I also have a piece of twine here, kitchen string. Once I get this started and the meat starts to fill my casing, then I'll tie it off. Right now I'm ready to start stuffing. Where's my pusher? It's right there. All right, so there's my meat starting to come out. Tie that off. Piece of kitchen twine. And just to explain what's going on here, I have a cutting board on top of a big heavy pot so I can raise this up, and I have a piece of parchment paper here. The idea that I'm thinking is that by letting this fall only a short distance, I'm going to put less strain on my casing and I'm less likely to burst the casing. So there is my stuffed casing, or stuffed casings. You can tell by the number of pieces that I have here that I did experience some bursting today. It's going to happen. These casings are kind of old. They've been in the refrigerator for a while, so maybe they're getting too fragile. I had enough for 2 full-length casings, and this is all I have left over. It's just a handful of sausage meat. I'll put this in the refrigerator, and I'll use this for making patties. To shape these now into links, it's pretty easy. If you want them all to be the same size, then on the underside of a piece of parchment paper, draw some lines, and then you can use those as guides. I think they look a little bit better, more homemade, if they're a little bit different in size. If you see any bubbles, like I have one there, you can use a pin to prick that so you don't get a bursting later on when you cook them. But to shape them, you just simply pinch the sausage meat and then twist it. And there's your links. Let's do another one here. This is a little bit longer, so it's going to make slightly longer links. twist it off. And see how they're a little bit different in size? I think that's okay. I think they look better as far as more homemade when they're a little bit different in length. Let's take a moment to talk about storing and cooking. You can store these sausages in the refrigerator for 2 to 3 days. If you want to keep them longer than that, wrap them well and freeze them. When you cook them, make sure you cook them all the way through, because now we're using ground meat. Any bacteria that might have been on the outside of that piece of pork shoulder is now distributed all through the inside of those sausages. So by cooking them all the way through, you kill any bacteria that might make anyone sick. I cooked up some linguine to have with my sausages, but I can never get the pasta to look good on the plate the way the chefs on TV do it. They have a way of spinning the pasta onto the plate. This is the turntable from my microwave. What if I were to spin the plate as I plate the pasta? Let's give it a go and see what it looks like. Not bad, not bad at all. A little bit more on there, I think. I mean, that looks pretty good. I think I found the secret. Spin the plate. Oh boy, I bet the chefs on TV are so jealous right now. That looks pretty decent. And then I've got a couple of sausages here. Strings are still attached, but that's okay. Put a second one on there, like that. And then where's my cheese? I shaved some cheese. I'll put a few flakes of Romano. You can use Parmesan cheese on there. There. How does that look? I want to see how that's going to taste. Okay, there it is. I cut a piece of the sausage. You can see the little bits of sun-dried tomato in there. I know how the pasta is going to taste, but my sausage, wow. It has that mild herbal flavor that I'm looking for. It's not hot and spicy. You could add red pepper flakes or cayenne to that if you wanted a spicy hot sausage. Very, very tender. Melt in your mouth tender. So I got the right balance of fat to meat. So, excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy my linguine with my homemade Tuscan sausages. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit my website, mobilehomegourmet.com, and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.